AITA for canceling vacation less than 24 hours in due to my kids' behavior? My husband and I have 3 kids. 9M, 8M, and 3F. The boys have been driving us crazy. They fight like cats and dogs. We've had countless talks with them about respecting each other. To no avail. I understand sibling rivalry, but it's gotten to the point it's disruptive to us all. Every day. I already told my husband last week I wasn't sure if the vacation was a good idea. My husband shut me down pretty much immediately and things went ahead as planned. First of all, the 3.5-hour car ride was, predictably, hell. Boys fighting and riling each other up the whole time. Husband and I kept trying to reassure each other that things would be better once we got there and they would be too excited to cause trouble. We were wrong. They had so many reminders of what not to do once we got to the rental house. So they do everything wrong from the get-go. Shoes on the white furniture? Check. Running in the house? Check. I turned my back for 2 seconds and the 8YO threw a box of chalk in the pool to keep his brother from getting it. We went out to lunch and they were out of control in the restaurant. 9M ran away from us in a strange place because he didn't get his way. We finally go to the beach and they are frankly being brats. Refusing sunscreen. Fighting over toys. Pushing their luck repeatedly, going farther and farther out in the water than we told them to. Cursing. By the time we got back to the house, it was around dinner time and I was fed up. They were totally ruining it for everybody. Nothing had worked and I told my husband we needed to go home. For the reasons mentioned above. Mainly that they needed to see a real consequence. My husband still insisted it would get better. I put my foot down and told him that I didn't even want to be there at that point, so either I was leaving, or we all were. He got super pissed and told me it was ridiculous and unfair to our daughter. I actually agree with him but saw no other choice at this point. Of course, when I tell the kids, they immediately burst into tears and are begging to stay, promising they will behave. My mother, who came with us, was also near tears. She thinks her precious grandbabies do no wrong. She argued with me too, begging me to just let it go, but I refused to budge. So, we left. Less than 24 hours into a 4-day vacation. Half the ride home was spent with them sobbing and my husband pretty much gave me the silent treatment the whole way. My mother decided to stay behind a little longer but then started randomly texting me about 30 minutes in, asking if I was serious. She knew I was, and told me the whole reason she came was to spend time with the kids. So I had now ruined it for everybody, and they're only little ones. Here we are the following evening and pretty much no one likes me right now except my 3-year-old. Are they right? AITA? OP equals NTA for ending vacation. But these behavioral problems are not just during vacation, clearly. You need to get this under control. Your kids don't seem to understand consequence and are making themselves vulnerable to harm. Less than going farther and farther out in the water than we told them to. Info. Is this the first time you've given these kids consequences? 'Cause I'ma bet they've gotten away with this behavior before without them. NTA. Actions have consequences. Your sons are learning a needed lesson. NTA. Kids need consequences. And it sounds as though your husband and mother have been too inclined to give them one more chance. If you ever need to say to them again, stop that, or we're going home, they'll know you mean it. NTA. The is your husband, who is questioning your authority in front of the kids. The other is your mother, who wants you to raise future serial killers. Apparently. No. You are enforcing discipline, as any good parent should. Snorts a line of birth control. This family dynamic needs some revisiting. Is this how y'all normally decide on things? Husband puts his foot down or you put yours in an eternal tug of war. Y'all need to try better communication strategies. Otherwise it'll just be an eternity of this dysfunction. Am I correct in assuming that your husband doesn't do the majority of parenting but steps all over your toes when it comes to discipline? I'd say NTA. Anyone who's upset needs to be upset at the boys. NTA. Maybe let dear grandmother take the boys over a weekend at her house, and the rest of you go on a mini break. And tell the boys, if you can't behave, you don't go. Lectures on respecting each other are getting you nowhere. They need to make a connection between action and consequences. From years of child care experience, you need to seek help. Family therapy, parenting classes, something. I'm not trying to be hateful here. The fact that this is typical behavior in the household says something not so good. NTA for the consequences, but likely YTA for raising children who act this way. At that age I'm mainly not going to blame the kids for being a-holes. I'm going to blame the parents who clearly haven't tried some form of discipline to them. The only thing y'all done to correct their behavior at home, based on the post, was pretty much telling them to be nice to each other. And I'm going to take a guess and say one of the main issues is because you're letting your mom undermine your authority. On vacation it again sounds like y'all played the game of, don't do that. Well no, don't do that. Y'all need to get on the same page and teach your children that actions have consequences. Regardless of if you're on vacation or at home, they're acting this way because they're not punished for it. Canceling the vacation was a start, but honestly it's a late start. YTA. Specifically because you and your partner didn't parent your children until you decided to go nuclear. And you jumped straight to burning the entire vacation down. I'm going to break this down. Shoes on furniture? Not allowed on furniture until you can respect it. Running in the house? Sit in timeout every time it happens. Going from a couple of minutes to progressively longer if they don't get it the first time. You destroy a toy to keep your brother from getting it? Great. Now your toy is gone. If we get chalk again, you're not allowed to play with it until after the vacation is over. Out of control in the restaurant? You will sit in the car while parents take turns with finishing eating. Or we'll get takeout and leave immediately. You will get a sandwich instead of restaurant food. Running away in public? We immediately leave public and go back home. And you're staying in your room until next mealtime. Refuse sunscreen? You're not getting in the pool until you put it on. Refuse to listen and go farther out into the water? The first time, you take a break from the water. And explain to that if it happens again, you are not allowed in the water for the duration of this visit to the pool. Follow through if it happens again. There are so many things that you as parents could have done to address this behavior before it got to this point and you did none of it. There are so many moments you could have made your kid take a break from a desired activity if they weren't behaving responsibly, and let them know that next time the increased consequences would be X and Y. You could have left the activity or the location instead of the entire vacation. If you are consistent and the consequences for a child's actions result in lost privileges connected to their behavior, they understand real quick that having a good time is entirely within their control. It is within their power to choose to act kindly and responsibly. And if so, they're going to have a great vacation. Does all of this sound exhausting? Yeah, I bet. But if you're consistent, then all you'll have to do is warn a kid most of the time. Because they know that you'll follow through and you mean what you say. You also need to get your partner and any other caregivers on board with you. Otherwise they'll be undoing the work you do to get the kids to listen. You have a lot of work to do. Thankfully, you have several days off to get a head start. Edit. Formatting. I'm curious, due to your husband's apparent lack of support, does he mostly leave you to deal with the kids? Seems like he would get fed up otherwise. 2. Either way, NTA. But you need your husband fully on the same page and engaged in disciplining your kids if you're going to turn things around. This isn't a one-off problem, and it's clear it's due to a lack of parenting and basic discipline. Quite frankly, I'm extremely shocked at the amount of NTAs. You and your husband need to start getting onto the same page about basic things regarding your children before even attempting to go on a holiday, wasting money and everyone's time, to then just drive back home 24 hours later. Everyone sounds unbearable except for your 3-year-old daughter, and I'll even give the grandma a slight pass because she came out with you guys to, quite frankly, babysit, which isn't her job. I would still perhaps have a word with her on the side once you and your husband are on the same page about things. You should have perhaps punished the boys by banning them from a fun activity on the holiday until they started behaving, instead of ending the vacation for everyone. Except the 3 years. OMG, get your kids under control. FFS. Obviously, this is a bigger issue. Your kids aren't acting like this all of the sudden, there's a reason for it. Kids get rowdy, but acting this level of unhinged stinks of a much larger issue. I understand consequences, but your kids won't be magically better cause you took away vacation. Your daughter is being punished now too, even though it's not her fault. If you were fed up, why not leave the boys with dad and go somewhere different but exciting with daughter? Why not take boys home and let your husband, the grandma and daughter have a nice time? Why not give the boys some sort of consequence at the beach place? For the poor parenting and too little too late parenting. Also for ruining vacation for multiple people who didn't deserve it. Do better. Info. Did you warn the kids that the vacation might be over if they didn't behave? This was a 100% appropriate choice, as long as it didn't come out of nowhere. It sounds like you talked to your husband several times about the possibility of canceling the trip, and how the boys' behavior was ruining it. But there was nothing about you talking to the kids. 7 and 8 are old enough to deal with the consequences of their actions, but young enough to need those consequences pointed out in the form of a warning. And frankly, with a consequence that big, they should have had a warning. If they didn't get a warning, then it would have been reasonable to give them a chance when they cried and begged and promised to behave. One chance. So your blow-up served as the warning they needed. If none of that happened, all they learned is that mom will blow up out of nowhere for behavior she was previously willing to tolerate. And kids need consistency. One type of consistency is giving a warning and then following through on the threatened consequences. It was one of my most successful parenting strategies. And because of it, they take my warnings seriously. And one of my kids is a 7M with ADHD. Seeing as it seems you're the only one willing to do punishments, but you seem to jump right to the most extreme and inconvenient one and have the power to do so. Where were all of the intermediate steps of punishment? Timeouts? Having to read or be quiet before they can go outside, swimming? No dessert without earning it with good behavior? I feel like there were lots of other options before jumping to the one that impacts your innocent daughter and costing you adults money. YTA. If they never learned about control, they want now. Like, where were you guys all these years? NTA. However, it sounds like you and your husband aren't very consistent with consequences, and that it's time to really set some boundaries for your children and hold them accountable.
If you enjoyed this video, Please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.